And we're off.
Yeah.
Hopefully the audio problem won't recur.
So what things you want to talk about today? So we could start off with the smart stuff.
SMART as an acronym.
Yeah.
An acronym.
Talk about, I don't know. The things I've been thinking about more recently are like panpsychism, mainly. I know you have thoughts on that.
There does seem to be a low hum, but that was there before. There's like some audio that's...
Yeah.
Is that something in the background? Is there like a machine going? Or is that static?
No. Static.
Would it be possible to try this without the headphones?
Sure, hold on.
Is that a problem now?
Now there's like a very faint, high-pitched... I think it's good. Oh, but now I'm hearing myself.
We'll take yours off and see.
No. No,
well, you're literally hearing yourself because... Okay, hold on.
I'm hearing myself. It's because it's playing... Here, what's that?
Yeah. How did I change that?
There. I'm hearing myself. It's because it's playing on your speakers, but it might have corrected because I know there's supposed to be a software fix for that. Now I don't hear myself.
Okay.
Now I'm good. Okay.
Okay.
There is like a very faint whistling, but that's probably like an actual piece of background noise. All right.
I think it's the computer.
Has like fans.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's acceptable.
I might even be able to correct that afterwards. We'll see. All right. So what were we talking about? The SMART approach?
Well, yeah. This is interesting, right? I mean, click on the second paper and you can read the abstract.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, don't do that because that doesn't have the entire paper. But if you take
no, there's always ways to get the entire paper.
No, I know, but if you just take the title and put PDF after it, or because that paper is available on ResearchGate. It's available on ResearchGate.
Oh, okay.
So just take a relational frame.
No,
go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the girl from.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, that's a weird bug. What is that? All right, whatever.
Default text, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Oh wow, Colbert.
Zoom in a little bit.
Yep. Do not quote.
It's out of Ireland.
We're teaching the little Irish, the street urchins.
They're not so different from you and I.
Belfast. We used to eat according to that. What was that? That wasn't Payne. That was who's the guy? A Modest Proposal. Swift.
Yeah, Jonathan Swift.
The study aimed to replicate and extend the pilot findings of Cassidy.
When you're talking about standard deviation increases here, and this is in the paper before they sort of like made the process better, because with the version they have on their website, they say like depending on the age range, certainly for younger kids, you get 20 to 50 point increases.
20 to 50? 50? 50?
Yeah, I'm sure the person who got like a 50-point increase was like autistic or something.
Yeah.
They were
some neurotype that was scored
Yeah.
bad on one type of test and then had a.
And then they like increased that capacity and it like increased everything else. But still, for like 20, like people who are normal, still getting 20-point increases in IQ. It's fucking
I
ridiculous.
mean, again, you could make billions if this were implemented. So why?
Well, so what I'm thinking, well, we'll see if I could convince some people who have money and clout to do this. Like, if this company could get data on like a poor African population and like increase their IQ, like that's. I mean, I don't know I don't know the extent to which the because it's a course, right? So I don't know if you can patent that.
That is a wet dream of like the global left. That would be, oh my God, it's working.
And it was done by government-funded research.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That would all.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea has a well-documented contentious history. Yeah,
Just slightly.
Yeah, just a bit. I've never said that it can't be altered. What I've said is that it looks like there's not good evidence that it can, and then later in life, it looks like it converges on some.
Yeah, because the interventions just haven't been like good enough.
There's the space of all possible IQ interventions is effectively infinite. There's like so many things that could work that we haven't tried, but I know what we.
Well, the cool thing
tried.
about this one is it's a theory of how children get language,
and it's tapping that theory for.
Yeah, so it's like this is how this works, and it's based on the ability to derive relationships between concepts, derive arbitrary relationships between concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put it. And so they're basically like, okay, so this is actually how people derive these relationships. Some people are just worse at it than others. So if we just like strengthen their ability to derive these relationships, it's like correlated because they did it across larger sample populations. The improvement in relational skills is correlated with, to different degrees, with an increase in 10 out of the 13 IQ subcategories.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them, and so there'll be
it's
presumably different hypotheses. I mean, for something like spatial reasoning, like just the ability to visualize in space,
mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can improve.
Notably, there's a small subset of people who literally don't have that.
Yeah.
And they do fine. Some of them have huge IQs. They just can't.
So Ashkenazi Jews
rotate a Q.
Ashkenazi Jews are like notoriously like they can't do spatial reasoning. So certain
that is funny though, because there's a bunch
hilarious.
of physicists who
can't do spatial fucking reasoning. But I think like the lack of that capacity probably leads to some sort of overcompensation in some other regard.
Arguably, the best drummer in the world is Jewish, and I believe he's Ashkenazi, and yet there is that South Park trope where it's like, Kyle, Jews don't have rhythm. Which I don't know where that stereotype might come from, but it's like still notable that like.
I know Jews who don't have rhythm.
Well, I know. Yeah, I also know, and I know other white people who don't. I know one black guy who doesn't have rhythm.
You know one black guy who
one black
just
guy.
One.
I mean, that's who doesn't have rhythm. But anyway, it's hilarious. But anyway, there's exceptions to every tendency. But anyway, compulsory schooling. They need to follow them for years. That would be the 2016.
Well, and I'm sure like studies like that are happening. It's just like the initial paper came out in 2011, right? first of all, it costs money to carry out a pilot study like that. I don't know that this one was.
So here, this is one that's just mentioned here
Yeah,
as
but
one
this
of
isn't
the
relational training. This is like other attempted
okay,
IQ.
the
Yeah,
Milwaukee one.
yeah. So that was in the 1960s.
Yeah, I noticed it. Yeah, but that one followed people until they were all had a
Yeah, and it still
mother
saw.
an
Yeah,
IQ lower than 75. Oh my goodness, that's mentally. I mean, the original term was mentally retarded. In many cases, the father was absent. The newborns. So an absent father might mean though that some like
they're
I mean,
poor.
I'm just devil's advocate here. Brainiac dad went and hooked up with someone who basically was mentally ill. Oh my God, that's. But anyway,
Well, IQ is more strongly correlated with maternal IQ.
yes.
So that says like there's definitely some environment because it's probably women spend more time with the children.
Well, and they also, the so this is actually interesting. The there's genomic imprinting is the sort of combativeness, evolutionary combativeness between the um, maternal and paternal lines, and
Yeah,
the mother has all the environmental control for that first 9 months after conception.
right,
And
right,
so there's this interplay between the father's basically his genetic representation is only in the fetus. And so there's an interplay where the everything is weighted in favor of the mom. And so
right.
for example, like fetal like perinatal actually volume and mass, like the size of the baby. If a baby is born larger, that is somewhat adaptive for the dad because it means they're going to be helping to hunt at like 11, but
Yeah,
it's very maladaptive if they scale up too big. It's maladaptive for the mom because it's risking death, and then you won't have any more kids, and then
sure.
it's genetically maladaptive. So there is an interplay there where there's a lot of pressure to actually, and I believe it's even something associated with certain like maternally inherited disorders, like I think schizophrenia. Maybe there was like basically the size, like weight at birth is associated with all these things that are maybe not as maladaptive for the. I don't know. Hey, I could show you genomic imprinting, but like if you want to get into that, I'll go off on a big tangent and stuff. But basically, this one is saying mother with an IQ lower than 75, and they determined what mean IQ was 120 in the experimental group. Okay.
Dude, there's a lot that, especially if you start really young, it's amazing to me. Like like our factory is not far from slums, and I see kids in the slum, and it's just obvious to me that they're smart. Just
Right.
like the way they maneuver,
Well, I'd
like their
imagine if you weren't,
curiosity.
you would not survive quickly in an environment like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. No, it just.
depends on
I think the
so
main thing is like that.
there's
Go
like
ahead.
street smarts, and then there's like maybe Steve Wozniak type smarts might be the
No,
kind
but
that wouldn't be
the
very
point is
adaptive
they're just figuring out their environment.
yeah.
It's like whatever like series of things they have to figure out to survive. They're just always working on figuring it out.
For this reason, Arthur Jensen has suggested that the
So
Milwaukee Project did not produce permanent intelligence gains, but the IQ gains it showed were due to an indirect form of teaching to the test. Because they only had a mean of 10 IQ points above that of the control group by age 14.
but
That's
how
that's
so
not.
like what kind of intervention was this?
Training. Mothers of children in the experimental group received education, vocational rehabilitation, and training in homemaking and childcare. Children were brought
Okay.
to infant stimulation centers where they received a high-quality educational program designed to develop language and cognitive skills. They also received 3 balanced meals a day. They stayed there 5 days a week. So the 3 balanced meals a day, that totally could explain the 10-point difference.
Yeah.
by the end,
actually.
because that
Yeah.
actually, if you even just
It's
having,
like a standard deviation. Like hunger is like a standard deviation.
well, I think 10 points is 10 points. It's a little less than a standard deviation,
It
but it's
is.
still a
Standard
big.
deviation is 15 points.
Okay, yeah. They're 5 days a week, 7 hours a day. When they were 6, see, that's the part. Okay, when they were 6, the program ended. I bet at 6 they
Yeah,
had.
but like, yeah, if you end the
120.
program at 6
Yeah.
and like put them back in an environment where they're not getting proper nutrition and everything.
I wonder if there were some way, like if we found a way to automate education, like meaningful education, if we found a way to automate it at such a level that we could just provide everyone with adequate and personalized education, not
I
in a
think we're
creepy
pretty
way.
close to.
I wonder
I think we're
could you
close to being there.
maintain, well, we're getting there. I mean, I don't know how close, what's close,
I mean,
like 5
it
years?
depends on. I think okay, so obviously when you're getting to like philosophy and shit,
Mm-hmm.
economics, whatever, but I would say like all the tools. First of all, a lot of math can be on like the teaching of math can be automated. A lot of that can be.
Yeah.
Like
You can
basic.
actually creating different problems that people can't look up. You can there's a meta math problem where you figure out how to design all the problems of word problems of a particular category, and that's already like a
and you don't allow people to stray outside the rules.
Yeah, well, all you're doing is defining rules of a system like that, and then you're
Right.
just so it has, and then the question has to make some sense, and then other than that, it just has to be not Googleable.
Yeah, so math, a lot of it, reading, a lot of it can be done. Writing is tougher because you need feedback.
Yeah,
But with like GPT-3 stuff,
I
with
know,
like
right? Yeah. I
yeah,
wonder
like
if we'll find like weird. There'll be people who have a very weird writing style because they figured out some little way to write in a not like nonsense, but still get graded well.
but get graded well by the AI.
Yeah, we might be past that already, though. So I don't know. Yeah.
Did you see how one of the like this guy used GPT-3 and got one of his articles at the top of Hacker News?
I have not seen this. All right.
Yeah, he just like Hacker News, yeah. No, it will GPT-3 Hacker News. Where is this?
Yeah, here it is. Fake.
Yeah, there
The
we
one
go.
that charted on Hacker News.
Yeah. It was super easy, actually, which was the scary part. I mean, like,
So he used, because running GPT-3 requires a pretty big.
yeah, but he got access to it from this other like PhD student.
I gotcha. Okay, so
Yeah.
he was within the system, university system, and then.
Yeah. But my point is, you could easily see how that could be used to develop writing. So you
Yeah.
could have, like, and especially this whole thing where kids take 3 months off a year is kind of stupid. Like, I don't understand why that's done.
Wait, what was the last? What'd you say?
I said this whole thing where kids take 3 months out of the year off is kind of.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's because they have to go farm. They have to help their parents with the
yeah,
crop.
but like that's
the
not.
American tradition that we all are farmers. We're an agrarian society. It's
But
the
I
1800s.
imagine,
We also own
a
people.
system where kids go to school for like 4 hours a day, maybe like 4.5.
Oh yeah.
And they just like 2 hours, 30-minute rest, 2 hours, and they're basically like playing video games.
I like the. I mean, that sounds like a good idea, but I like the model where lecturing is recorded and kids watch the lecture at home, and then they go to school and do the homework, which is the classwork, and the teacher walks around and helps them with that. Because that makes so much more sense to me, because you don't have to be in the lecture hall for the lecture or to get the lesson.
Yeah, I
guess you
agree.
could ask questions, but you can just type that out, and then
You
everyone
just type
gets
the
the
questions
answer.
and ask them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially in a society where you already have like a very well-developed teacher base.
Yeah.
Because like you could go quicker to automation when like there are people not getting an education. You can justify just like taking some kids and experimenting with different educational models. Whereas like here in America, if you were like, okay, we're gonna take this kid and like experiment with his education, people would not be down.
There's a lot of there's also, I remember, I mean, I was public school all the way since the beginning. I think my preschool was a private school, and I did 1 year, and it was actually, I think, a Montessori private school, but I did 1 year preschool, and then everything since then was public school. And it was a really mixed bag. You'd get some really awesome teachers who like were clearly there because they were just wanted to help people learn and they loved doing it. And then you get like at least half, like all through public school, were like a special kind of shitty. Like I mean, I remember this lady, I think she had political connections because she had the same name as the mayor at Hillside. I remember this one teacher who like told us all about how she thought Jesus, first she thought there was a crystal that allowed Jesus to ascend to heaven. That was one thing. She was really into this Wiccan kid in class who I now think in retrospect, I'm like, what was that? Wait, what? But she would like bring him up and how important he was all the time. He's in class. Like, it was so weird. I don't remember hearing much from that kid either. Like after 7th grade or something. But, and then I remember she talked all about, she got really obsessed with when there were the 2 snipers and the DC snipers, and they thought it was a white van, I remember. She was like, maybe he goes this way. She's drawn on the board, like white van. He shoots the person, right?
What grade is this?
6th grade. This is 6th grade. We were all like, oh, miss, can I go to the bathroom? Like, so nuts. I remember actually once I was like, I had some concept of like, this is not what we're supposed to be doing. And I remember we had like a test that was the same test, and she gave it over and over all year. So eventually I would just get it back, and she would grade in pencil, and I would just erase and just swap the tests. And it was the same. I just didn't even have to fill out a new form. I remember doing that more than once. Anyway,
oh, dude, let me show you this video. It's a bit, we don't have to watch the entire thing, but I'm gonna link it to you. This is for like 3rd grade, and I just like, if I had this when I was a kid, it would be so awesome. Check the chat.
Oh, the chat over here.
Yeah. Just bring it up.
Got it. Let me know if you can hear the audio.
Go back. Don't be like, take it both away.
Oh, go back to the beginning?
Yeah.
All right.
It's like this kid playing Adventure Academy. It's meant for like 3rd grade and up.
Mm-hmm. But how old is he?
I think he's like 9 or 10. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys, it's the first day of school. Just kidding. It's the first day of Adventure Academy. Who's ready to join me on this adventure?
It's great.
Right?
Such confidence.
As y'all can see, I'm gonna use the character that I made with y'all last video. Each story, whoa, is that the Academy? It's huge. Each story is up at least once a day, so check back often.
So this is a game, this is an education game?
Look at that fountain. The commons.
Oh, did you cut out?
Welcome to Adventure Academy. We're so happy to meet you.
Is this
Nice
an
to meet
education
you
game?
too.
Headmaster Howell is waiting to greet you in the Academy. The Academy is that big building straight ahead. You can follow the golden footsteps to help you find your way.
Sorry, maybe you couldn't hear me before because it was playing, and I think it was cutting my internet connection. Golf sound might be
Yeah, it's
bad.
fine. Yeah, what's up?
But so this is an education game, like word problems and solving stuff.
Math, spatial, there's science.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything where it's gamifying, because I know it's like
Well, I'm just saying, like, think about how much more fun school would be.
Oh yeah.
If it was literally you and your friends go play video games or you solve problems and shit like that.
I remember part of what made school hell for me was certainly early on, was I wasn't able to operate at the social scale. Like there were 30 kids in a room. They're all, and I was already like,
it's just a shit show.
Developmentally, like socially. And so it was, you're not able to process like, all the weird, hey, Becca said, oh my God.
It'd be cool if you could just look, and it sucks when you have to deal with all the social stuff, but if you could isolate learning, because like when you're in the class with people, the questions you ask the teachers, all your friends are paying attention, all that stuff, you're like competing for grades, even at a young age. If you could just like remove the learning component, I think you really win, because like some kids excel at it. Like when I hit 7th grade, just kids teasing me much. Like
kids teasing you what?
Messed with me.
Yeah, that was exactly right around then for me too. Yeah, I mean maybe.
Yeah, because that's when they.
I don't know. It's not telling me my internet connection is stable, but you do seem to be cutting out a little bit. I don't know what was causing that, but.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It might be prudent if do you have a recording button on yours? Because then you could save it at your end and just send me the file. Because I'm saving it right now, but you can. I know it's just. You don't have a.
Record on this computer. I'm recording.
Awesome.
It says please ask host to give you permission to record. So you're permission to record it.
Allow record. There we go.
All right. Here we go. I'm recording.
Okay. I'll tell you if there's any like issue with it cutting out or something, but that would just help me. If it cuts out and then there's something important said.
Yeah, maybe we can like switch it in.
Mm-hmm.
That will take more time.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I could just, as long as I line up the two videos, just put one over the other, and then any part that doesn't.
Pretty simple. But yeah, play more of the video. Let's see.
Sweet.
Have fun.
I'll go see Headmaster Hal. Meet the faculty. Say hello to each of the faculty of Adventure Academy. Rewards 10 XP.
He picked an avatar that looks like him.
20 coins. I guess you can
like he's got
buy
the hair
stuff.
going in.
Yeah.
And then a hat.
And so like the money you get from solving problems, you can get to buy accessories for your avatar.
She said follow the golden footsteps.
He even has a blue shirt.
Yeah.
This beautiful fountain.
Now, that name, that's another, or is that is this game like an MMO?
What do you mean?
Are those other human beings playing the game elsewhere?
They can be, but they don't have to. You can play with your friends.
So she said in the hallway, and the Great Hall is where Headmaster Hal is. You can equip an object to each hand.
Give it like vague, like Harry Potter vibes, just to get everyone.
Yeah, right?
Huh, did you see the Obama, that poster in the Obama style, like the red and blue hope?
Gigantic.
I didn't see that.
Oh, it was on the board. It was someone running for
Headmaster Hal. Headmaster Hal, Mr.
It's my
Hal.
pleasure to welcome you to Adventure Academy. We've been expecting you. I'm Headmaster Howell. It's my duty to make sure all students are learning to their fullest potential, while having fun in the process, of course. I see much potential in you.
I can't wait to get started.
Oh, now that's the adventurous spirit. It's a perfect time for you to meet some of the other Academy professors. You can say hello to Professor Melian, who's in the science wing.
We're
It's
watching
down the
someone
hallway to the left.
play,
I'll speak with her.
or someone else will be watching.
Meta, meta.
You can block or report bothersome against players in their profile page. Oh, they're so cute! Ugh, that giant T-Rex. There's Professor Melian.
Shouldn't you be in class? You must be the new student. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Professor Melian. Welcome to the Science Wing, where we celebrate both the natural wonders of the world and the marvels of human invention.
Hello, Professor Melian.
Feel free to explore these exhibits whenever you'd like. There is much to see and learn here at the Academy. Oh, have you met librarian Janina? Why don't you drop by the library and say hello?
I'll head to the library. Meet Miss Janina in the library. I wonder what that is. You unlock new quests as you level up.
I can't see getting hooked on something like this like as a kid.
You can't what?
I can see like getting hooked on something like this like as a kid. It's the sort of thing I would have played obsessively potentially. Like
Groundskeeper
Alright, we don't have to watch the
knows
entire-
everything about the Academy.
I just want to see if there's
But
like,
yeah.
some part. Is this so? This talks about. This is like the school. Oh yeah, the Library of Alexandria. They talked about that actually in The Swerve. They talked about Alexandria and how it probably was not. It's much like Rome. It was more of a gradual decline. Probably not all burning at once, but it's more like whole industries, like the papyrus industry after Rome fell. There was a real decline, and it was over the course of centuries, but in like the availability of different things that would have prevented the gradual and then rapid loss of essentially all the like great authors of classical antiquity. There's all these books where we're like, this was some epic tome that everyone would cite, and there's one volume out of like 27 that are actually made it to today. And it was almost a good, it actually talks about it was almost good, or it was good that the priesthood, the monks were, they would copy often without intentional, they wouldn't try to comprehend a lot of the works. There was some comprehension, and there were like little glimmers of like classical antiquity breaking through during the sort of medieval times. But in general, if too much of that info had been, had shown up in like 900 AD or whatever, you'd ended up with a bunch of people being like, burn it. This is pagan.
Oh, maybe those people wouldn't have thought to burn it if that info had stayed around.
Well, that's true. You could argue we'd already be, colonized, 100 years into colonizing Mars right now if Rome hadn't fallen or whatever. But
Probably, yeah.
another thing I noticed though about this, and it wasn't emphasized heavily in the book, but I'm only halfway through, but everything ran on slaves. Fucking all of the Roman Empire, they had to keep invading new places to get
get more labor.
So like, I mean, nowadays we're like, oh, all our cheap, stuff is made in China or whatever, blah blah blah. But like, you know, the fact that you can push a button and your garage door opens and there's not like a guy from like the last colonization that your armies did who's just pulling a crank in order to get the door open, that's a big deal. That's like, that makes all the difference really between now and then. And like I'd imagine if someone back then were like, gee, we probably shouldn't be doing this, which I think there were some people, if they were like sufficiently rebellious in their thought, they were like, this is kind of fucked up. But what would they, it's like if you found out, you know, in the middle of this, that like every bit of electricity use is like, there's like a, you know, an angel getting tortured or something in the, or some
Or
weird
just,
like,
you know, like factory farming. You don't even have to get that abstract. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna end it all? Like, you know, all of civilization is like assumes that reality.
You can often, at least historically and still now, I think you can find ways of personally detaching from the horrors of whatever your time are. Like, so I've managed to not, I don't eat factory farm stuff at all anymore. But
cool.
And it's all made, it's like cooked, it's slaughtered locally, grown locally, everything's local.
Well, just, and also like the vegan options are really good. I think a lot of people don't like, just have a bias towards veganism, but when I was in America last, like the food that they make, like it's legit, like it's just better.
More effort's gone into, because it's never went like, what was a vegan 100 years ago? It was kind of a weird, it was like Hitler was a vegetarian, but like it was a weird thing to be. And I guess unless you were like Jane, I guess there were some people, I think Janes were the ones who, I
wonder what the numbers on like veganism and Gen Z is. It's probably like substantially higher than it has been in the past.
%12 of millennials describe themselves as vegetarians or vegans. 11% of boomers, 8% of Gen Xers, and 7% of Gen Z.
Really? Well,
so
they might.
More of us. We're the most.
It might just be that as people grow older.
Yeah, they're really young right now.
Yeah.
Typical
12% of millennials is substantial.
Is likely to be a millennial Asian male with an income of 100,000 and up. Oh, it might partly be an income thing. That might be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It does cost more to eat vegan. It does.
Yeah. And just to be enlightened to the like food deserts, you're not going to be vegan in like Detroit. There's not a lot of vegans out there.
Like when I come to America, I'm vegan. When I'm in Liberia, it's not really an option for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Wait, you're seriously vegan when you come to America?
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Kudos. My my old roommate, who's been on this a few times, but Aaron is
I know.
vegan unless he knows the guy who raised the animal.
Oh, I see.
Some Albanian dude back in Worcester. These are these cows.
Who, in addition to,
I've named this one Boris.
In addition to ethically raising animals, also is a big part of the sex trade, shipping in.
That's true. That's true. They're very ethical to their animals, and then not so ethical to the human animals. The Albanians run much of the human trafficking around the world, surprisingly. Because you would think it's still Italian.
I'm surprised that they don't get into other industries. Like, why just human trafficking? Why not like drugs and shit?
They probably get. There's that one that got into pharma, and then we put him in jail. Shkreli. He's probably the most famous Albanian American right now.
Probably, yeah.
Nobody knows he's Albanian either. And,
that's true.
And then I think John Belushi was Albanian. And then there's that really hot musician with like a contralto. What's her name? She's like a singer. Dua Lipa. She's Albanian. It's a couple, actually, female Albanian singers and musicians. And then there's Mother Teresa. And then that's it. That's all I can think of.
Oh, so the girl I work with, we've been testing out the K through 2 software.
The K to Haruba?
K through 2 software, kindergarten through 2nd grade.
Okay. This is
Right.
this is
It's
one of them.
look up go to kitkitschool.com.
KIT.
Yeah, KitKit.
All right. Kitschul. All right. Making Kit School more accessible to children. So what do we want to go about? Whoop. Did we cut out again or?
Yeah, your internet connection went out, but it's fine.
I wonder, I bet it's the Wi-Fi repeater here. Because it wasn't happening always before. Huh.
But yeah, like
That's
on
funny.
pretty low requirement hardware, it's like 2 gigabytes RAM or 2 gigabyte storage, 32 gigabyte RAM. Kids can go from preschool through 2nd grade. Essentially, you can go through the entire.
32 megabytes of RAM, right?
Yeah. 32 megabytes.
Because you could put that on a Raspberry Pi. Or you could
Yeah.
put that on a Raspberry Pi Zero. 32
So,
megs of RAM. Yeah.
So this stuff is made for like kids in like rural Africa.
Well, a Raspberry Pi is like $14.
Yeah.
If you don't put the pins on, it's $12.
Yeah. So
I don't know why.
And the interesting thing is, she's like in our experiments, you have to like take the game away from the kids. Otherwise, they'll sit there for like 4 hours straight and just play it. And she was like, "Yo, like looking at this, they could finish the K through 2 curriculum if we made it available to them, like 5-6 days a week. They could finish all that shit in 12 to 18 months."
That's wow.
Yeah.
That's an unfortunate name, Enuma. Co-founded in 2012 in Berkeley, California.
Their curriculum is really good too. We downloaded it on the tab, and it's like fun for kids to play with.
Yeah.
It's fun for me to play with.
Now,
They
is
have a
it similar
library.
to that one you were just showing me, the Academy?
No, because that's more like a space that you move around in.
Yeah.
This just like gives you exercises,
Okay.
but it's like, like songs and shit for kids. It's like getting them, used to the alphabet, phonics, all that stuff.
I remember seeing this.
They won the X Prize. Elon Musk gave
Yeah,
them
I
$5
saw
million.
that up here. Yeah. Global Learning X Prize. It looks like they were a finalist and then they were co-winner. Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of
This
Elon Musk,
other
and this is
company
related. Did you see what he's going to announce in the next few days?
Yeah, like Neuralink.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Okay, so the interesting thing about this
shows
is
up,
going
he's
to be
got a
wild.
tooth coming out of his head. He's just like, hit it with a baseball bat. Don't worry, it won't break. It won't break. It's dunk.
But the thing I'm really interested in is not really. I mean, all that stuff's gonna come later, like the, what's it called? I don't want to. It's not telekinesis. It's telepathy, being able to communicate through thoughts or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, but all that stuff's gonna come. But the interesting one is just like what's called wireheading in sort of the transhumanist panpsychist circles.
Mhm.
And Andreas was talking about this, where like your brain doesn't. So like if you take a drug, your brain adapts to it,
Mhm.
right? You have to take something. But if it's just like electrical stimulation of the pleasure centers in your brain,
Yeah.
it does not adapt. It does not adapt to that.
The adaptation is more of a chemical, like
Yeah.
something builds up over the receptors. But if you have
Right.
a direct line, then it's just
Yeah.
constantly.
So with Neuralink, they're going to have just like low grade electrical stimulation of the pleasure centers in your brain throughout
The
the day.
orgasmatron. And then, I think the less strong people, they want to have an orgasmatron. It's always like offered as the like glowing ball of hedonium option that's always available. They're like, if you could launch into space at constantly approaching C into the light cone of while getting the pleasure center of your brain, just so you like lasted for the longest time, or you could colonize Mars or whatever their thing is. What would you?
Yeah,
And it's always offered as it's funny.
Would you do that if like, I mean, not right away, but like 10 years from now? Like put in a Neuralink and just have like low grade stimulation of your pleasure center throughout the day?
I wonder what would happen to answer your question, I'd probably, if it were just a button in front of me, I probably might hit the button and find out.
Yeah, but they like the brain implants are like 1/10 of the width of a thing of hair.
Yeah.
So
they're really tiny. They're
really tiny. They're not. It's not that.
I'm wondering if I would get the implants. I wouldn't be the first. I would not.
Yeah, I don't want to be the first, but like
no one wants to be the first.
10 years from now, or like 15 years from now, I'd definitely be down to try it.
Also, I think if it goes in through the forehead, I think that the evangelicals are going to lose their minds. And so I also wouldn't want to do that. If it comes in the back, that's not in the Bible, so that's fine.
But they do it on the top.
Yeah, at the top, that'd be okay. Yeah.
Like right there.
Like that little box in the, yeah.
I think that'd be cool. Like, I mean, it's unlike what I imagined would happen, which is like a better version of Molly.
Hmm.
You know, we've talked about this.
Oh yes, I think the first episode we talked about this.
Yeah. But I mean, and Andres' company is also doing this thing where they like do protracted brain scans of like champion meditators.
Oh, and then they try to
simulate the similar dynamics.
Induce
or recreate. Yeah, induce, not similar. Which would be fucking fascinating, right? The idea of like a regular person just putting on the Enlightenment hat and like.
I've never put a lot of like I know something's going on with meditation because other people will swear by it, but I've never put a lot of effort into trying to learn to do it myself.
You really should.
I should. I've been told, yes, that I.
Well, not only that, like for somebody who thinks about science as much as you do, I think it's kind of absolutely necessary.
Oh, speaking of, I can announce this is my I've been 3D printing planetary gears, and I actually there's this thing called like horizontal spread or reduction or something that I should probably implement on this because it worked really well for this little linear actuator over there. But and then I could use a positive horizontal spread on this one because this one didn't seem to stick together well. It kind of falls apart. This is like the thing that everybody prints first. Yeah, see, it comes apart. But this is like one of the things and this was like my second print. And that's why it sucks because I've gotten better at it over the weeks. But I printed it using like this wood print stuff, like this wood filament that's very it's actually made of wood and corn. Most PLA is apparently made of wood, or made of corn rather. But this one is a combo. So this is like supposedly food safe and FDA approved.
So how do you get like the base material for all that stuff? Like what form does it come in?
It comes in a spool, and it's like a tube that has somewhat thick. I mean, it's like, you know, the thing in a pen, you know, the inside of a pen, that clear tube. It's about that thick, solid, and that slowly gets piped into this little heating element that has it's like a little cone-shaped heating element, and the end of that heating element is much smaller than that. It's like
that makes sense.
0.12 millimeters, something like that. Or I think it's 0.4 in width, but the height can be down to 0.12.
Yeah.
And so it very slowly spools it in, and it comes out somewhat rapidly.
Yeah.
And it has like the two axes, and then it goes up to very slowly, has a Z axis. And it's worked really well. I mean, I've had some trouble with it where it got plugged. I had to print an upgrade for it so that it would stop occasionally, because the Teflon tube that goes into it that just comes from the factory, that tube has like a pneumatic seal that's supposed to hold it down against the heating element so that the stuff comes in and then it turns into goo slowly, and then by the end of the tube it's like essentially all goo, and then it touches the metal piece at the end and it comes out the end. There's like a gap that'll form as the thing moves, thousands of times back and forth over the course of days. There's a gap that'll form because every time it gets tugged, it'll move up a tiny little bit, even though it's supposed to be sealed. And so I printed a thing that lets you, it's like a template and then a plug. And the template is for your particular printer, and it lets you cut the end off the Teflon tubing at just the right spot so that when you put the plug in under this part that screws in, it keeps everything that's hot. All that tubing is now independent and separated from the cool tubing that comes in and sticks into the top. So if the cool tubing if a gap forms there, it's not going to leak out the sides because it's not goo, it's just cool. And so the part down at the bottom stays sealed, and I haven't had any trouble with it since I did that.
Cool.
Yeah. There's just
what other kinds of materials are available?
Oh, there's tons. There's ABS is like this harder, I guess, or more durable kind of plastic, but I'm kind of skeptical of using that. I don't want to use that one because I don't want to have a bunch of melted plastic everywhere. I like this stuff, but none of this stuff smells bad. Like this stuff, and it's because it's corn and wood and a couple other things. Yeah. I wouldn't want to, find out years later it causes some issue or whatever. So I'm just sticking to the all natural. There's also some filaments that are like rubbery. I haven't looked into, like, I haven't bought any of those yet, but I know that there are some that are still made with natural products, but that are good for like latches and little pieces that, and then there's like multicolored filament, see-through filament. There's just so many things you can print with. And then there's another type of 3D printer altogether that's got much finer resolution that will print in layers using light, UV. Basically, there'll be like a projector going up, and then the plate will rise out of a liquid, and the projector will basically solidify a very thin layer using light. It's like photolithographic almost, like the way we make circuitry and stuff. But it'll just do that, and the thing will just rise out of the liquid slowly because it'll be stuck to the plate, and then the plate will come up. And that looks really cool. But again, I'm like, there's no way that's made out of corn. That's some sort of weird, like something with some giant molecule that you can't pronounce that has a bunch of X's in it in the name. And I'd be worried about being exposed to that for a while.
I need to figure out how to print these right here.
What? Part of the issue is anything heated.
Metal.
Oh, so just straight up metal? Yeah.
No, so this is plastic.
Yeah.
So this is plastic, but then it has like, the part to screw in.
Yeah.
And the part where you like cap. This is a liquid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liquid's in here. Then you cap it right here. So.
If you could do it all at once, that'd be pretty impressive. But
I don't think you can, because this is disconnected, and then you have to fill it in and then cap it.
Yeah.
So it'd be weird.
There is such a thing as metal 3D printing. It's just
I looked into that, but it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, you need a big fancy machine.
Yeah.
Like that's a piece.
Like I think it costs like $150,000
for the machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the filament is, it's not something you could mass produce using this, even if it like mass produced custom stuff. But yeah.
But there might be like an alternative.
Oh yeah.
Or you could just order a ton of these like metal screws.
I think if there were,
it has a thing inside for heating it up that's metal also, so it gets all weird.
And I think finding alternative ways of making a particular system. That might be the short-term solution, is like a software alternative, like PCB boards, like the printed circuit boards or whatever. PCB board, printed circuit board. Anyway, it's PCBB, but the current way of making those in bulk is totally different from some of the ways that you can either 3D print or even you can use your 3D printer as a CNC with like a Dremel on the end, and you can basically you just buy a board that has silica as like one layer, and then it's just got copper or something on top, and then it'll drill out all the channels, and that works.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, and you can solder on it and all that stuff. So I mean,
I just wonder, like what, because this has to conduct electricity to heat up.
You can. There is conductive filament. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. Solderless 3D printed circuits. How long is there? A short video here? Yeah. Okay. Conductive.
I recently received 3 rather unique items in the mail. The first one was a 3D printed Terminator head with integrated red LEDs for the eyes that light up if an appropriate voltage and how to break by hand, if we compare it to regular PLA filaments. And before doing any electrical tests, I firstly replaced the current filament spool of my Delta 3D printer with this new material in order to find out how easy it is to print with. I simply created a small cylinder in 123D design, imported it into the Repetier software, changed the slicer settings according to the manufacturer's recommendation,
you would need 2
sliced
print
it, and
heads
started
to
the
make it
printing
all
process.
at once.
And surprisingly, it printed pretty well for first test. So I created a bigger cylinder with 123D design, which I wanted to use to find out how the resistance depends on the infill ratio. But no matter how often I tried to print this time, this cylinder never worked out. The reason is probably the Bowden extruder system of my 3D printer, which cannot push the semi-flexible filament with sufficient pressure and thus also clogs the hot ends. But even without successful prints, we can still test the electrical characteristics of the material. Now, simply pushing the probes of a multimeter onto a piece of the filament will most certainly deliver wrong results, because the contact resistance between the probes and filament is higher than the resistance of the filament itself. To solve this, the manufacturer recommends silver paste.
Because if I could profitably make one of these for like 25 to 50 cents and sell them for $1 here,
yeah,
it would be very profitable.
3D printing is not good for stuff that is the same and made a ton. You want to make a ton of.
Yeah,
it's much better to make. Yeah, it would be great for example, if you wanted to make like cell phone cases or like gun sheaths or something that was custom to human hands, and everybody would send in like a 3D model of their hand they took with their phone or something. And they sent it in, and then it came back. Then the bulk makes sense to do with a 3D printer because it's slightly different each time, so you can't make it all on an assembly line. But and then the other thing it's good for is prototyping. That part's great. Like I printed this like linear actuator for a little stepper motor, and I was using like the horizontal thickness. I would modify it so that basically, so I had 4 sets of components for the same device, but they were all slightly different sizes, so I could mix and match them when it was done and figure out the one that fit perfectly. And I've had some success with that today. But like that's the sort of thing, things need to differ per product, which that doesn't, right? I mean, unless it's like particular to like your lips and your taste or whatever, there'd be some like every person sends in like a photo of themselves in order to.
Yeah. But if it takes like 45 minutes to make one, I mean, if you're talking about making thousands, like it's just not really an option. Unless you bought a shit ton of 3D printers to do it.
This print took over a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could like make gears, and also I wanted to use my screw tap. Like I have.
Also, gears are soothing.
They are, yeah. There's and like this one specifically, and it's a little. There's a piece in it that broke when I was putting it together, and it still works fine. But like that's part of the reason it's. But like specifically planetary gears too, because there's like you can see all the different parts are rotating at different rates.
Yeah.
And then if you turn this one moves slower. Yay. You can even do it like that, where you can't see the inner workings, so it's just weirdly moving faster. Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah. Oh, going back to the GPT-3 thing.
Oh yeah.
Like, if this is improved, that means like learning how to write, learning how to read, and learning how to do math. At least like all the basic
Could
stuff.
all be
I think,
automated.
yeah, it can all be. Is fucking huge. Like the
Oh yeah.
implications of that once the global population can share that, and you add relational training to that, you're talking about like standard deviation increase in IQ across the globe or something
Yeah.
like that.
I mean,
Which,
assuming that all this stuff pans out short term, like that these gains stick around, which they seem to, from what the what was it? Not the program. This one. Although remember, if these people are selling a product,
yeah, no, but this paper was So this paper was before she started the company, and she didn't come up with this research.
I gotcha.
Yeah, she actually just capitalized. Like, relational framing theory has been around since the 70s. They're just getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't go through the abstract.
No, I was skipping straight to the conclusion. I do that sometimes.
Yeah, well, you can do that. Yeah.
You want to go back to the abstract?
No, it's fine. Whatever you want.
That's the citations.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
What's really interesting to me is like the theory of how a language is actually
What were you saying?
I'm saying the hypothesis for like how language is acquired is really interesting to me, not just the results. There are other papers that explain the entire theory, and it's pretty cool.
And how that relates to intelligence, or just
yeah, there's
in general.
Yeah, no, it talks about how it relates to intelligence as well.
I know, like, when you see like, you know, a 7-year-old on YouTube who's like playing a banjo insanely well, like God level ability.
Yeah.
That's, I figure they're probably savantism, like certainly musical savantism. They're probably tapping something about language, because it's like all children are language savants. They can all learn a language that we would all find hard to learn. They can learn Icelandic, whatever. And so I bet that's part of what's going on, is there's like layers of brain that are like, in this case, the kid like tap that growth for banjo or whatever.
Right. And the entire idea is like, it's about the ability to derive relationships between concepts.
Which that was what the SAT used to have, and then they got rid of that because I think it was, I don't know why they got rid of analogies were in the SAT.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something is to something as as you know, A is to B as X is to Y. And
I actually like played one of the games, and it's pretty obvious how if you gave a kid that when they were young, it would make them smarter.
Which game? One of the ones from the Racer IQ.
Yeah. One of the training. But no, just
you want me to keep? Yeah.
I don't know, if you're interested, you don't have to.
I'd have to give it an in-depth look on the rest of the paper.
Yeah, you would.
I know you already sent it to me. Yeah. Was this the one you sent?
I sent 3.
So, in my defense, I was really obsessed with this.
I'm not holding against you.
The ESP8266, I figured out that you can program it with Python, but it's not just regular Python. Oh no, it is MicroPython, which means it's basically, so if you already know Python, then it's easy to transfer over, but the libraries are different. So like the language is structured the same way, but like time is this module or library that's imported a lot in Python, where you're like, okay, you know, I want to make the program stop for 3 seconds or 0.3 seconds or whatever.
Sure.
Or you want to, you know, it's just the time, and you can convert between like time strings and stuff. and Unix. You can figure out, oh, this is an important one actually, is the Unix time. Like the time for most computers is synchronized all around the world. They have like a little watch battery in them, every computer, desktop computer and laptop, cell phones, all these things. They draw a little bit of current even when they're powered off. And it's not enough to transmit a signal or anything, but it's enough to keep a little quartz clock going and to keep a roughly accurate time. And like I had a laptop recently where the clock had died and all this SSL stuff was failing. And then I just put Linux on it and it worked fine because it would just get it from the internet. It would be able to figure it. But anyway, so on an ESP8266, which is this little chip, I got 3 of them over there. They're like $16 for 3 of these chips, and they're Wi-Fi enabled Arduinos that you can program to do all sorts of shit. Like I have one that's running right now. It's in the garage. There's that's where the printer is, and the printer's running. And this chip has an alarm on it that I programmed it to constantly update, so I could see the lights blinking, and the light could only be blinking if the thing in the garage is talking to that chip and giving it the command to turn the light on and off. Like it's not some program that's already on the chip. It's getting accessed over the network by it, so I'll know when it's off. And there's a fire detector in the garage. There's like a little smoke alarm that you can buy for like $6 on Amazon. It's amazing. All this stuff that you just suddenly is so cheap too. All this stuff, as long as you could just program it yourself, it's like the sky's the limit with the whole Arduino space of things to do. But anyway, so in MicroPython, there's a library called, it says U time. I'm pretty sure the U is supposed to be like micro, like, the little symbol for micro. And it basically doesn't have that Unix time feature where it'll do time since 1970, January, something. It'll give like a number of digits that all correspond to that, and it'll be the same all around the world. If you run that library on any computer that's running Python, if the clock is in any way accurate on that computer, then it'll say, okay, yeah, it's this exact Unix time. And it'll know that even if you turn it off and then turn it on again, that's not available to that chip because it doesn't have a little battery on it. And so it'll actually, the library on that chip is more limited in what it can do, but it's still pretty amazing that it can do, it can have, you can basically port most simple Python programs over to it. Like it can send me a text message, using Google's servers. There's like all sorts of alert things I wrote into it that, oh my God, that was what I was obsessed with when you sent me these things. And I was like, interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean,
sort of meta,
I definitely don't read everything that people send to me.
Yeah. I'll take a look at this one though. This seems interesting that what I was hoping to see in the conclusion here was they said, yes, we determined that this was sustained, because I knew already that you could.
Well, the thing is,
it's so IQ
I think the reason to think it's sustained is that it's worked over multiple age groups. Like you've seen different levels of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when they're younger, you see like more improvement, but you've seen it work across multiple age groups. So it only follows that if they do. Go ahead.
It does make that more likely, the conclusion you're drawing. It does make it more likely.
Obviously,
if it works in 14-year-olds and 4-year-olds, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it also, just realize that also fits starts with a W. It's not the Westermark effect. There's that effect where the older you get, the more your measured IQ will correspond to essentially that of your siblings, that of your, it converges on a mean.
And I'm sure if you had siblings and you had the same kind of intervention,
right,
you would end up in the same thing. But the question is, like, can you raise the floor, right? Because it seems like if you have like a median IQ of 100, let's say, then you have enough like skill in your population to have a functioning society. Also, the interesting thing is that they've done games like The Prisoner's Dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Where cooperation, increases your chances, right. Whatever. People with higher IQs cooperate more.
Yeah.
So that's if they have another person with higher IQ. But
you're probably better able to gauge whether the other person is going to cooperate. And whereas if you're quote unquote lower IQ, or like, this is like the marshmallow test, you're not going to trust that researcher to really be honest and say, oh, I'll give you 2 marshmallows if you don't eat the one that's in front of you. And like the poor kids ate it right away. And it's, oh, that's a sign that the poor are in fact intellectually inferior. And they, it's like, I think the poor maybe just have less reasons to trust a guy in a lab coat telling them that he's going to bring them food later.
That he's going to give them. Well, it just, so it seems to me that if you just have like, and also like rich people in low IQ environments are not more virtuous, because it's not rich people, smarter people, or IQ rich people.
Wait, high IQ people in poorer environments, harsher environments, or literally
in
low
IQ environments?
Yeah, okay.
High IQ people in low IQ environments are not more virtuous than like the low IQ people.
Well, it's not a smart strategy, and if they're smart,
it's not right. And you see that, like being in Liberia, it's pretty obvious. So, but the thing is, if you reach that threshold,
wish Kai was here.
If you reach that threshold where your median IQ is like, you know, between 95 to 100, there's enough like people who can cooperate in like a trustworthy, and then that can sort of emanate, right?
Oh, it definitely, being in having a group that all has higher IQs, it's a lot more beneficial than, oh, we have the lone genius it's like, that's not that helpful. It's more helpful to have everybody boosted, and then you're able to solve collective problems that can be like Bell Labs in like the 70s and 80s. Like there was this, there are little pockets of like point where like a company had like an R&D division that kind of ran away with itself, and like just became its own, like, and we still hear about those places like 30 years later. You just see like some guy with a beard is like, yeah, that was like that was when the entire American phone system was automated on the blah blah blah, and because Ted had this weird idea, and it was like, and we were doing acid, and then we were like, let's try it, and you just get these weird collective, but you need to have that bubble of free exchange, and like everyone's comfortable with like just sharing their weird ideas, and you don't get that a lot in the world. Most of the time we're kind of hitting each other with various increasingly modern forms of rocks.
It's weird. Like I wrote, because for everyone, like I'm trying to do a thing where like kids basically play video games for school, and we boost their IQ from a young age. And just like writing about IQ on grants, I wrote to like the Turing Foundation. The guy who responded, there's obviously like a discomfort with the idea of like funding something to increase the IQ of children in Africa.
Yeah.
It's like, because there are implications to that, like.
That's so fucking awkward. It's like when the UN, like, the UN or someone didn't want to designate pygmies in the Congo as like a separate ethnic group from the general population in the Congo, because it was like, you just keep adding, and it's like, you realize they're getting eaten, right? They're literally getting hunted and killed, and they're 4.5 feet tall. They're clearly a different population. If you don't define them as that, it doesn't count as genocide. And are you kidding me? Anyway, this just like, I think
it's such a weird fucking part of Africa, dude.
Oh yeah, the Congo.
It's like most of Africa is not just like dense fucking forest,
right?
Where like you can't build a house because the roots grow through the floorboards and shit like that. So
wait,
like it's
really in the Congo you can't even, because it's
in certain parts of the jungle, you can't even build a house because like it's just the entire area is just so alive and so biodiverse and like
intense.
Yeah, it's really intense. It's like it might be one of the most. I don't know what the South American rainforest looks like much, but it's probably the biggest parallel to the Congo in the
definitely, because I was going to say that the mineral resources are the things that are getting, the Congo's getting like raped over right now internationally, and it's those aren't, and it's very specific rare earth ones. Or I think that's the term, rare earth, but they're cobalt, coltan. They're in demand right now, and like just because of electronics and stuff. I wonder to what extent like the present biodiversity in a place like that is because of like the same long-term geological upwell of like stuff that wouldn't normally be at the surface is. I kind of wonder, like, and it's kind of like Cradle of Humanity, like roughly, although there's like bouncing around all over the place there. But yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I don't know. You just see like, you know, the hippies would just say, well, there's a ley line there, see, and it's, you know, Anubis said that, and you're like, I know.
Did you know that there are 5 different races of humans in sub-Saharan Africa?
What are they? I mean, there's continental groups around the world that have like an anthropological
I found
definition.
This video on YouTube.
Yeah, what are the?
Pretty cool. This guy, like, it's Massaman is the name of his channel.
Oh, Mossman's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he?
One on sub-Saharan Africa? Yeah, he did.
Yeah. I mean, he did one of the Nilotes, and that was the most popular one. But hold on, let me find this one.
What if sub-Saharan Africa became a single country? That one?
Hold on, I'm gonna send you the link right now. There you go.
When people from the Western world refer to humans from sub-Saharan Africa, we generally use the umbrella term black to describe their racial makeup. This sort of implies that all Africans are one homogeneous racial group that all get along just fine, but this doesn't nearly come close to giving justice of the situation. And I will admit that I'm guilty of doing that too, but it's purely out of convenience sake. Now, if you go to Africa and ask someone what race or ethnicity they aren't going to say, oh, I'm black, just like 99% of the people in this country, unless it's one of the westernized countries like South Africa. I mean, there are thousands of different ethnic groups in Africa that I'm going to roughly quantify into a few different racial subgroups. Now, I like to fancy myself as a bit of an amateur anthropologist of kinds, but by no means am I an expert on the subject. I just have a lot of interest in it. Now, when you think of someone from Africa or someone that's black, what probably comes to your head is the Bantu peoples. The Bantu peoples populate pretty much all of West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, and parts of Southern Africa.
Significant refugee population
Bantu
in my
all speak a language from a branch of the Niger-Congo family, and they all have ancestral origins in West Africa. Their appearance is generally the same across the continent, although those from the equator tend to be a bit shorter from those from Southern Africa. Now, if you've ever seen a movie like Black Hawk Down or Captain Phillips, and you look at the Somalis and you think to yourself, wow, those people look really interesting. It's because Somalis and other people from the Horn of Africa are actually quite different from the Bantu peoples that populate most of the rest of the continent. People from the Horn of Africa, such as Ethiopia, Eritrea,
I mean, if you're going
Somalia,
just on skin tone as the definition, you're going to miss a ton of stuff, especially in a place where adaptively everybody's chock full of melanin in order to...
Slimmer noses,
right.
They may or may not have lighter skin color than the Bantu peoples. I've seen people from Ethiopia that are really light-skinned, and I've seen people from Somalia that are really dark-skinned. Now, for the most part, Cushitic peoples do not like to identify with the Bantu people from the rest of Africa. In fact, Bantu people, or people who look Bantu, are generally kind of looked down upon in Ethiopia and Somalia, and they prefer people with facial features that more resemble Middle Easterners or Europeans. Now, next you have the Nilotic people, who are probably my favorite group of people on the planet. I mean, look at them. They're just so interesting.
Whoa.
They have such unique
That's-
facial features. Now, Nilotic people
Right.
number about 40 million.
That's
And
the
inhabit pretty much all of South Sudan,
supposedly there's
along
some
with parts of
term
Ethiopia
in
and
some
East
African
Africa.
language that means
Now, what makes
so black you're
Nilotic
blue.
people unique
Yeah.
facial features and their very, very dark skin. I mean, it's so dark, it almost looks like a dark, ashy gray color. But they are some of the tallest people in the entire
The Dinka.
world.
Is that what he said?
Unlike
Dinka?
most Africans,
Nilotic.
Nilotic people
Yeah,
are
I think
really
Dinka are
tall on average.
I think the Dinka are, yeah.
They're like
Tall,
the
with the
tallest
average
tribe
male
of the
being
tallest
almost
tribe.
6 foot. This is part of the reason why you see so many people from this region that are professional athletes, like basketball players, track runners. If I had to guess, I'd probably say that they evolved that way because of the extremely high altitudes they lived in. Now, what's really tragic in recent years is that the Nilotic people of Sudan were actually targeted for extermination and genocide by the Sudanese government, and the Sudanese
Not
government
good.
is now actually wanted for war crimes by the
Hey,
UN.
is that Omar-
However, in 2011,
No,
South
that's
Sudan had an independence referendum, and surprisingly,
Yeah, that was
Sudan was all for it. So South Sudan became an independent country. Now, in very stark contrast to the height of the Nilotic peoples are the Pygmy peoples of Central Africa, who are actually one of the shortest people in the world. The average Pygmy is only 4,
They live right next to each other.
makes them
That's
much
pretty
shorter
amusing.
than the Republic of the Congo and other Central African
They combine
countries.
and they just have like
Pygmies
a
are thought to
normal
be a
height person.
pre-Bantu population
Yeah.
that existed there before the Bantus migrated from West Africa. And generally, they're highly looked down upon by the Congolese population. In fact, many of the natives there even consider them to be subhuman and
Yeah.
hunt them down for sport and even cannibalize them. So yeah, as you can see, all these so-called black African groups don't really get along very well. And if you want to all classify them as one monolithic black race, go right ahead. They just might not like that very much.
Yeah.
Now, next up is
And
one
it
of the
causes
most
problems.
ancient in the entire world, the Khoisan people of southern African countries like
Johnny,
South
the
Africa,
Bushmen,
Namibia,
or the-
and Botswana. Khoisan peoples are considered a proto-population,
They-
which means that they haven't really changed much in the last
They have,
few
like,
thousand
Asiatic
years.
features.
Their facial features are generally all over the place. They can have facial features that resemble Europeans,
Whoa.
Asians, or other Bantu
Like
people.
they all have that.
Next,
but
we
can't
have
control,
populations that
like the
aren't really
you know, the
considered
eye
native
that's-
by
Yeah.
Africans
Kinda-
there, but might be considered black if you go to a country like the US. The Cape Coloreds of South Africa
the
are
Khoisan are
probably one
the.
of
Have
the
you ever
most
seen the movie
mixed group of people
The
on
Gods
the
Must
planet.
Be Crazy?
They have ancestry
No.
from Khoisan,
That
from
you
the
should
Bantus,
Pirate that
from
sometime.
Europeans,
because
South
that
Asians,
fucking
East
movie is
Asians,
hilarious.
and Southeast Asians. Now, you also have the island and country of
From, like, the
Madagascar, which is
70s or something.
one of the most interesting places in the world. I could do an entire video on this place. The population was believed to be settled about 1500 years ago, and what's really interesting about them is they're thought to be a combination of people from Southeast Asia and Bantu people from Southeast Africa. This
They look
racial
a
group
little
has sort of
Australoid.
blended in and evolved to the past
A little
1,000
bit.
years or so,
And
and they now have a very
like,
distinct and unique look. Now, if you're from New England, you probably
Southeast-
know
yeah,
about
Southeast
Cape
Asia.
Verdean people from the island of Cape Verde. They generally tend to be about 50% African or Bantu and 50% European, who are mostly Portuguese. Cape Verde is an archipelago, so the genetic admixture tends to vary from island to island, but if you go there, you'll see black-looking people with blonde hair and blue
Yeah.
eyes. It's a very unique mix.
There
Now,
are,
what's actually quite interesting is there are actually more people of Cape Verdean descent outside of
There are
Cape
blonde
Verde
people with
than there are in.
black skin and
They mostly
blonde
go
hair,
to
like naturally blonde
Portugal,
hair.
other Western
in,
European countries, but especially the New England area of the United States, like Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. I'd just like to point out that nearly all of the Africans brought to the Americas during the American slave trade were Bantus from West Africa, which is probably why Americans tend to think of Africans as just one singular racial group, that all look the same and all speak the same language and all get along just fine. All right, I want to thank you all for watching. Hopefully you learned something new and interesting today. And I want to give a huge thanks to the Iconoclast, who
So there's a
recently
little
hit
chunk of
2,000
those,
subs
but
and
not
gave me a shout out in one of his videos. And he had a bit of trouble pronouncing my channel name, which I don't really blame him because, to be honest, I don't think I've ever said my channel name out loud. So I'll just let you guys guess to see what it is. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's pronounced Mesa Man, like, you know, like Mason, but with man at the end. It used to be my screen name when I played video games when I was like 10 years old. I don't know. I thought it was pretty unique. But yeah, big thanks to Iconoclast. Go check out his channel. He does really good political commentary. And thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.
Edwin's out cold. Oh
No, I'm not.
Thought you were asleep.
No.
A good question to ask in the field.
I am well aware of the fact that they're not all the same. However, they
I mean,
look similar.
it's just cool to see, like, I wasn't talking about them, because it's pretty obvious they're not the same, but, like, the fact that they're just, like, these distinct racial groups that a lot of people aren't aware of. Sub-Saharan Africa, I think it's
Africa? Yeah.
In Sub-Saharan Africa, not just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to divide the continent up like that.
Yeah.
We should be a Pan-African Union that includes Sub-Saharan Africa and all the and has a pygmy representation and has and the Dinkies.
That would be like out of Star Wars or something.
Yeah.
And the representative of the Kalkamaks.
The pygmy caucus says no.
The pygmy caucus says no.
Oh boy. We represent the lollipop guild, the lollipop guild. Oh boy.
It's so weird when, I don't know, I feel like when you dive deep into different topics and then you talk to people who have like public opinions about things and they're just starting from like assumptions that are just totally off base, and it'll take like a really long time to even like begin to have that conversation by switching that assumption. I feel like I have that experience a lot more often now than I used to.
Well, I think it's just going to get worse from here unless there are ways, I guess. I shouldn't say that. It's going to be relative to your own situation, and in that sense, it's going to get worse and worse because you're just going to learn more. I assume you don't learn less if you unlearn. But the general population around you is going to, as you diverge more from the sort of mean amount of knowledge that people, as long as the general population around you in any one situation is not learning more as well, which they might be. That might be happening. YouTube and all these things might be bringing like packages of knowledge to the masses that were just fundamentally unavailable before. Like there's this guy, Ben Eater, who I've been watching. He has this it's like a really simple channel, no like introduction stuff. He's from Khan Academy. He was like the electronics guy at the early Khan Academy. And I have learned so much stuff, especially during like my Arduino phase, from this one dude about like, he built an entire computer and he builds it step by step and explains it all to everyone in a series of like, each video is like 30 minutes, 25 minutes. Some of them are like 55, closer to an hour. But, and like, there's stuff that I could imagine learning it from, he built an entire computer out of breadboards. Like this is the clock for the computer, the cycle timer, all the different transistor circuitry, but in each step, like how serial communication works and stuff. But I can imagine learning that from like a really good professor, like a really detailed course, and the professor cared. I can imagine having learned similar stuff from one course like that in college, which I'd of course have been paying thousands for or whatever. But but the idea that, like, first of all, you're going to get, even in college, professors are kind of a mixed bag, especially because there's like a research component to what they do. So some of them are terrible at teaching. They're like, oh, they're mad, they're required to do it, but they actually just want to get back to their research. I had a couple professors like that. But then also you can select the optimal, like this Ben Eater guy is probably the best, at least at this one particular subject or range of subjects. He's like the best teacher of the electronics, of all these. I've learned more from this guy about that stuff than I ever learned in college, even from really good professors. And so you can like pick the best one, and that is the course that millions of students all learn from. And he's even had a couple million views of some of his videos, which is like very it gives me faith in humanity to know that like someone's watched this. A million people rather have watched this 45-minute video about serial communication and checksumming and Hamming distance and stuff. And I hope that I mean, Masaman's another good example, but I hope that like as you learn more stuff and you're saying like, oh, the gap gets further for any particular topic, especially because you can eke out like new topics that are special to you, that like me and my obsession with Neanderthal DNA and like all that stuff.
And my obsession with panpsychism.
There you go. Yeah. And giving everyone Molly. That's the
yeah.
But that's it's such a big gap to get there. I've almost learned, part of what I've learned in becoming obsessed with an obscure thing is I've learned kind of how to drag people, given where most people are who I'm talking to, which is already still, they tend to be, have a college education, that sort of thing. But I could still drag people from roughly where they are. Like I know all the sharp corners or some of the sharp corners that like where people would get weirdly stuck, and I can drag them up just enough so that I can rant at them about my latest right.
I do that too.
I think the Nair people of India might also have admixed with a hominid because Pliny the Elder, his description of their mating practices was in fact similar to that of the archaic hominids that may have existed during and so but people are like, what? But I guess part of the reason it was very lonely, not like it's lonely at the top, but it's more like it's lonely out in this weird corner.
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
Whatever my take on something is, if it's like
you have to be able to talk to other people about it, or else it's just really frustrating.
It'll drive you nuts.
Yeah.
And so YouTube is really good for that.
Yeah.
I found Reddit
is as well.
Sometimes there's like one RSA animate clip, and you just need like a piece of it, and then like a lecture by Ian McGilchrist about brain lateralization, and that's all you need. And now people are like, well, I guess somebody on a podium in front of a big audience has talked a bit about what you're about to tell me about, so I guess it must be, there's almost like a signaling that maybe a book, a book would have required forcing them, hey, read this. But like a video, there's like people can be only half tuned in until something weird and interesting happens, or they can passively absorb it. And so I know that's probably less educational long term, but at the very least the signaling of the authenticity of a topic is more available. It can have been, you could see a lecture on it that was at an institution of a reputable one, and so you can be like, well, if they published this lecture, then it must have been somewhat quantum biology or something. This guy from MIT who recently was discredited because, well, not discredited, but I think he was put on, Seth Lloyd, I think he was put on administrative leave from MIT because of Epstein ties. So all my obsessions in my life are converging. It's like, I think they're going to find out that Neanderthals were quantum mechanical, and then they were like hippie, they do meditation, and they were the quantum Neanderthal Epsteins that are all
I agree with that.
And they use their neural nets that are that's the so everything will, oh boy.
What do you think of dude, sometimes I feel like people are overhyping technology, but then you see certain advances, and it's just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Oh, I know exactly. where you're like, that won't even, and then before you can finish the sentence, it's doing shit you never even dreamed of, and you're like, well,
The
I
idea
didn't.
of wireheading in 2020 is not something that I would have considered. Like,
This wireheading is the pleasure center thing you were
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
yeah,
That's specifically the term wireheading. Like if I,
yeah.
because it sounds like a less wrong. Yeah, I called it. It's a less wrong. Yeah, okay. That's literally their, okay.
Yeah.
Counterfeit utility. Yeah, so you aren't actually getting the utilons, the unit of utility. Your I swear to God, these people.
Utilons.
Oh boy, this is what happens when you rather than just like Bell Labs is what you get when you, and like Silicon Valley is when you condense like IQ, technical IQ in one area. But this is what you get when you just condense autism in one area. That's a particular type of, yeah.
But it'll be interesting though, because they're talking about how there are limitations to this. But when you have like 10,000 different things in your brain, circuits, like and you could like take you can basically use neural nets to go through like a wide range of positive mental states that people have.
Yeah.
Like a wide range of people have. And then you can vary the kinds of electrical signals that you can stimulate different pleasure centers with, so that could have
Probably
different
get feedback straight from the whatever device is, Elon Musk is wheeling out on stage in a week.
Yeah, I'm really interested. He actually hinted about Neuralink being used to just improve baseline emotional states. I think that was a few weeks ago, though.
Wait, really?
But you have to figure that would be one of the simpler things. Like, because, telepathy is going to be hard to figure out. Because there's words. There's words, but then there's like complex stuff with communication.
There might be, it'll start with like maybe pictographic kind of things.
Yeah,
like
but that gets weird, dude.
Mind's eye.
That like the mind's eye, like pictographic stuff in the mind's eye transmitting that has to be pretty weird.
Weird,
like,
but difficult, because I know that they have already, from like brain scans, they've reconstructed some of the imagery that people, which is already, I never would have thought that'd be.
But I'm just like, think about the wildest hallucinations and the kinds of imagery that presumably there's one sort of system at play there, but I don't know. It's just like visual images can just get so complex based on what's happening. And the same for like combining different ideas and things like that. I don't know.
Well, there's also a nonlinear component to the mind's eye, like nonlinear in the sense of like it doesn't necessarily correspond to base reality. It corresponds to like,
right.
That's how you end up with people like, I guess, like Einstein, and you can have depictions of a different geometry altogether that are still that's still consistent somewhat. So like Aaron, I know, has a program that he's still working on that's taken a while. He did release like an alpha version of it and got a lot of feedback and like changed the whole platform that he's putting on. But it's called Gifted Apprentice, which is a little bit of a funny name, but it seems like a really interesting concept. I think we've talked about it before on here, but it's the one where rotations are done like almost like cartoonishly, or they are cartoonish. I guess it's like the way Homer Simpson's head, it's not, you can see his ear appear before like the front side and the left side. It's like pictographic stuff is not doesn't directly correspond to physical rotations. Like if you show like Homer Simpson CGI, well, that's disturbing, but that's also disturbing.
What?
Any of these
Wait, are you talking about the same software program you showed us over there
Yes.
4 years
he did.
ago? Okay.
Yeah,
Still
a
working on
while back, and it's
That
still
was
going.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just all his demos are really cool, but it's because he knows how to use the software, and it's part of creating good software is having like a usability.
Yeah.
Having like a whole base of users, and then you get feedback, and then you modify it, and then but you need to like that's a bootstrap process. Like there's a like I know Reddit originally they were competing with Dig, and they had a bunch of fake users. They've admitted like at the beginning they intentionally created dummy accounts and faked a bunch of conversations so people would join and go, hey, this is a burgeoning community, and then they'd actually use it. You just there's some it's like impossible to really have new software without getting over that initial hump. But so you think it's common?
Yeah. Totally.
You
I
said
mean, just Google Neuralink and emotional states.
Okay. So Elon Musk won't be able to rage tweet anymore. He'll be able to control the. Did you see when he tweeted "take the red pill" and then like I don't remember who it was, like Ivanka Trump or something replies to him, "Already have," and then
God.
Lana Wachowski of the Wachowski sisters, now the creator of the Matrix, one of the creators of the Matrix, goes,
Yeah.
"You both." That was her reply. It was just,
Wait, what did she say?
she just let me find it. This was pretty funny. Yeah, it was Ivanka Trump. Yeah. So the tweet was, oh, they're just going to explain it. Yeah. So Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted, "Take the red pill," accompanied with a red rose emoji on Sunday. And soon after, he was tweeted by Trump with the reply, "Taken," by Ivanka Trump. And then, Lily Wachowski, so it's not Lana, did not appreciate the reference, however, and responded to Trump's tweet by saying, "Fuck both of you." the person who created the red pill term, like the whole concept, was able to tweet at them.
I think she's trans, right?
Oh yes, they're both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're siblings, and so you wonder. It's like, was there some genetic?
I'm sure there's a genetic. There's a genetic component to most things. Doesn't mean they're unalterable,
right?
Generally speaking.
And it may even have been not even necessarily genetic, but it could have been a fetal testosterone exposure. So it could have been something about the common mother shared.
Yeah, exactly.
But anywho. Oh, that was the thing I was talking about way earlier, just about fetal testosterone as being, and that's actually a really interesting thing in the context of like autism, schizophrenia, mental health stuff later in life, because certain sort of phenotypes are adaptive for one parent or the other, are more adaptive to have, and then maladaptive to the other sometimes. And that's part of that genomic imprinting, like the combative component of genetics between the two parents. They, as the genes are kind of combined in one way or another. And the fact that the mother has this complete control over the environment of the fetus for the first 9 months, and then has a lot of control even after that, but that is like envelops the entire world line of that fetus. It partly means that there's in eusocial insects, it's called the royal jelly, but it's this transfer from the mother to the fetus, to the offspring, of like this particular developmental stage, 4 months in, 4 months and 1 week into the development, this is when this part of the brain is always growing. You can sort of tell when different things are happening. And when that stage, if you get a high dose of testosterone, when this part of the brain is growing or whatever, and this part of the, limbs are forming or something, then you'll end up with this amount of bone density later, or some sort, a particularly like, you could have maybe a more like feminine social brain or something like that, where like, which ironically, the true alpha male tends to have the more like they're capable of arguing, right? And so and like would tend to have a high Dunbar's number and be able to have a lot of like, which is a female thing to have. That's so yeah. And so the this is why Simon Baron Cohen's, this is the cousin of Borat, who's an autism researcher who I've actually corresponded with a little bit, but he years ago in college, but he calls autism an extreme male brain, and I think he's probably right, but it's like a first degree approximation of right. Like it's a first step in the right. It's correct to say that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's because most males are a little bit autistic in the sense that, and you know, women get verbal earlier and have less.
I think that's why you see more like religious
not,
extremism among men.
More what?
Religious extremism.
Oh yeah. Autism has definitely got a component in that. Monks.
Yeah, because well, it's just like if you put together, if you like lay down a system, you know, people like try to figure out like, okay, what is this? How does it work? You know, just like.
And women will tend to conform with just generally whatever the dominant religion is in their environment. So that would
and how it's
like
practiced.
Spouses. Yeah. So like in general, if two people get married, the spouse that changes their religion, if they have two different religions, is the female one. She typically doesn't exert outsized influence, at least between those two.
Unless she's Jewish.
Well, there does tend to be a history of strong women in that, strong-minded. Yeah.
The matriarchy is coming for you.
It's probably the closest you could get. There really aren't any true matriarchal human societies. Certainly not at the civilizational scale, but that's probably about as close as you'll get.
Yeah.
It is interesting though, notably, Neanderthals had they were patrilocal, which is
What's
weird. So that's humans are matrilocal. It's not most species.
By the way, I have to leave in 10 minutes. It's
all
like,
right, that's fine.
It's like 11 here.
Yeah, this is good. I'll see. I'll listen through once and just make sure there aren't like big chunks missing, and then if there are, you can send me the file, and then we'll Okay. But Neanderthals are patrilocal, which is the opposite of humans, and their females are very robust. So it's not just that they were like trading women between groups. That may have happened, but it looks like women were the ones going like in adolescence, like, I'm going to go out and join the other tribe, which is totally a male human thing to do. Like that's in our.
How does that even work?
I know, because they're the one gestating the offspring. So how would it work? It looks like Neanderthals were a much lower, like reproductions per lifespan, the amount of times a female would reproduce was basically just above replacement, which is like sort of where humanity's at right now, but like it's never been.
Why would that be the case though? Like I don't.
It's hard to tell, and it may be that it was a long period of like a long period of reduction over time, and then the genders may have become more like it may have not always been that way. I mean, they split from us like 700,000 years ago.
Jesus.
Yeah, 400 to 700,000, something like that.
Wait, but hominids haven't even been like Homo sapiens haven't been around for that long.
Yeah, they aren't. They're Homo neanderthalensis. Yeah, the whole field of anthropology into disarray when all this shit happened. It was a watch because it was 2009. I was getting a physics degree, and I was just like, wait, there's bloggers who I remember a month ago talking about this, and now this Svante Pabo guy just came out and said it, and this is the opposite of like what Stephen Jay Gould was saying, what all these people were saying for decades. They were saying like it was because, and this comes back to the maternal versus paternal line thing, but it was basically we tested Neanderthal bones for mitochondrial DNA. We did that in the 90s. We could do that. We had the technology, and it's because mitochondrial DNA is more stable. It's like these loops. There's all this like archetypal stuff that fits into maternal versus paternal, because mitochondrial is just the mother's line, and it's this sort of separate but also part of the genome thing that's like transmitted, but it's all these little loops of DNA. So it's like little holes. I don't know if you want to. And then the X chromosome and the Y chromosome looks like a little shriveled dick. But anyway, it's amazing. Yeah, no. But anyway, the mitochondrial DNA is more stable, and so it lasts longer, and there's more of it per cell, like more copies of the same one, because and so we could sequence that in the 90s, and we could be reasonably certain, and this was true and still true, that there's no Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA in humans, modern humans, which is really interesting, because at the time we were like, well, that basically guarantees that there was no introgression into humans, because why would it only be Neanderthal males into humans? And it turns out that was that final hypothesis was bullshit, or that interpretation or whatever, because it totally could be, if it was just rare events, which it looks like may have been the case, couple rare events. If it was rare events and there was either genetic incompatibility, like the offspring, like I know, like there's a hinny or something, there's a mule, and then that's one particular gender. I don't remember what it is, but there's an opposite of a mule that's not that useful for farm work, which is when I think the male is the horse, I think, or no, the male is doesn't matter. The point is that there's a clear gendering component to, like, mules are insanely useful. They're way more useful than a horse or a donkey for a bunch of different tasks. They're like stocky, and it's in a way that like isn't even adaptive for the mule. It's adaptive for us domesticating the mule, like using this domesticated thing. And horses and donkeys, millions of years apart, way further apart than humans.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of crazy shit that, we were certain in the 90s, and it was turned out for like stupid reasons, sort of slightly Nazi reasons. We were like, we did not. Turns out we were fucking everything that looked remotely human and a bunch of stuff that didn't at all. We tried to fuck everything, and it clearly has worked sometimes. And all sorts. I would imagine pygmies probably are one of numerous examples of groups where they admixed with something. I know, for example, in Southeast Asia, near Indonesia, in the island of Flores, they have Homo floresiensis, which is a pygmy, that's a human. That they were called the hobbits. They're like 4 feet tall. They had their brain size was like, I think it was like 300 cubic centimeters. It was like a softball. They had tool industries. They had makeup. They had like a little civilization basically. And they had brains that were like a quarter the size of ours. So they clearly had a language.
Well, brain size is
I know, right? It doesn't directly correspond to. Yeah. Well, this is
look at like crows are smarter than fucking probably pigs.
Crows are fucking brilliant. I know. They're like ancient. It's like all the brains of dinosaurs, whatever weird brainy dinosaurs made it. Like, I feel like that's been condensed into crows, and they're like, they're embodying all these like,
Because can you imagine dogs having political rituals? No. The answer is no.
That's not. I can imagine cats being like, worship me.
Yeah.
They kind of already are like that.
Yes.
But dogs, no, they're just, hello.
Well, it would be hard for cats to do that because they would have to get other cats to worship them.
Right.
Like, I can imagine political rituals where the cats get the dogs to worship them.
Yeah.
But
I could imagine political rituals in bees.
Yeah.
Actually could see and they don't really have, there's no brain there to speak of. There's like a nervous system, but there's something that even looks like a neocortical bud in bees. Like there's a thing that other insects don't have that's grown around the bulk of their nervous system that actually inhibit. And so it looks like, hey, maybe that's a hallmark of like civilization in the sense of just, we built tall towers. Look at us. We're great.
Yeah.
That comes back to that royal jelly I was talking about, where if the mother can determine the phenotype, the queen in eusocial insects can, at different timing, sort of, 6 months into, or I guess with eusocial insects, it's like a week or a day or whatever, into the larvae like developing, she'll feed them something weird that's like this stuff that she creates from her body. And it'll determine whether they turn into a worker or, or their head grows big and they become like a doorway for the colony. That's a thing ants have, where And the coolest thing about the giant head ants, where it's just a small phenotype within the, maybe 1,000 or 100 ants within a giant colony, they'll be so specialized that their entire head will become a doorway, like all the entrances for the colony, in order, like, I think there's like water will run through and stuff in order to keep other insects out. And their body will be really tiny. The head genes come from a giant ant that admixed in way long ago.
No way.
Yeah. So I think that's the
what an interesting approach to specialization of labor.
Oh yeah. And it's like the queen specifically determines it. So like, say the colony shrinks a bunch in size, she can like divvy out like who. Like,
I feel like this is what the Chinese government's looking to.
No comment.
Looking to develop.
That is literally what's going on. No.
Or like, have you read Snow Crash?
Oh, I have. People keep telling me this is the one. They had like bullets that were made out of this. Oh no, Snow Crash. That's totally different. I'm thinking of a weird Dan Brown one. Snow Crash is because when you crash and it goes on the screen or something like that. That's the. This is like the same guy who wrote the stories with hero protagonist as the main character. Or no?
It's William Gibson. He wrote Neuromancer as well.
Yeah. Okay.
The start of cyberpunk.
Yeah, I haven't read Snow Crash, but Snow Crash, the term.
Oh no, this is Neil Stephenson.
Yeah.
Neuromancer is William Gibson.
Oh. So it's not the same guy who did Neuromancer? Oh,
same guy, no.
Yeah, it's a failure mode in the early Macintosh computer. In the beginning was the command line. Yeah, crashed and wrote gibberish into the bitmap. The result was something that looked vaguely like static on a broken television. Interesting. Okay, so that was so I knew what the name was referring to, and I knew nothing else about it.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
All right, I gotta run.
That Julian James's book was.
I feel like we should do this sometime relatively soon because there's still shit to talk about. But I gotta
there's
run.
A ton. I had a million tabs.
I'm down to do this weekend or something.
Yeah.
The problem is the time. I'm getting more socially integrated into Liberia.
Yeah.
So I have fewer like Fridays and Saturday nights where I don't have stuff to do and I can podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm just alone in Goffstown. Just working on my so I can anytime you just tell me like what's good. All right.
Okay.
I'll stop.
I did. See it.